What we want to call Hunter really is kind of a food activist, I think. That's really sort of what he's about. So after moving to Vancouver from Toronto in 2007 to be part of the West Coast environmental scene, it has air quotes in his bio, Hunter has found no shortage of opportunities to be active. His chef resume includes Burgoo, Nuba, the Waldorf, Tacofino, and Guerrilla Food. But his activism is best summarized on the Tiffen Project's website or on Twitter. He likes to tweet. It took us 2 weeks to come up with an email address for this gentleman because he prefers to communicate via social media. I didn't think it was fair to try and talk someone into something like this in public, but that makes me old, right? Like, apparently I should have just Facebooked him. But anyway, Hunter plans on being at the intersection of food culture and environmentalism for the rest of his life, and you're going to enjoy this story. Hunter Moyes.
Hi there. Just a heads up, especially to you, young man with the camera. I might move, so I might move away from the microphone. I promise you'll be able to hear me if I do. But I like to pace, and my life moves in strange directions at various speeds. So, thank you, Katie Jeans, apparently, for recommending me with a yell. That's awesome. That's flattering. You've got a bit of my resume there. This is the first talk that I've had where people have asked me what my business background has been. Where did I come from? Why did I do this? And so that was very flattering. Up until now, to tell you the truth, I've just done the Tiffen Project pitch thousands of times on many microphones. So it's a pleasure not to be doing that today and to have that solidly in the bank. I'm very, very happy to be at that point and to be speaking with such an amazing panel. So to put it in chef perspective, in a 10-part recipe, I'm about 5-part chef, so I've been in the industry for about 10 years, 10,000 hours of experience, or probably fed well over 100,000 people in my day. But that's about half. The other 4 parts, let's say, are business. Found myself in a very interesting business environment in Toronto between 2003 and 2007, where I was the point of contact for a whole bunch of brand management and I guess product rollout consulting specifically to do with the internet, which at the time was dominated by men in their 50s doing the brand management who had absolutely no idea what the internet was all about. So it was a very interesting space, a lot of opportunity. You know, a young man with a little bit of ambition can go a long way in such an environment. So that's about 4 parts. And then the word activist has already come up, but I'm going to round that down to environmentalist because an activist is a politically charged term, so settle down. Yeah, environmentalist is the term we'll use going forward. So given that recipe, I came to the scene here in 2007 and got my gray matter working on a new recipe that was not to be done in the kitchen. Taking, again, from my experience, I suppose you could say that I love food, but I no longer like to play with my food. Food to me is such a complex subject. You can't just enjoy it on a plate or go to a restaurant and enjoy it. It really is the hottest subject at the moment globally. Obviously, hunger is 80% of that hot subject, since it's kind of a needless thing that we're dealing with as a race. But the business of food is in how it's grown, how does it get to where it's going, who's consuming it, who's buying it, at what price, from where, in what season, where. There's so many variables, as I'm sure Chris will elaborate on, to be included in the whole food bubble. So for me, I took a little bit of business, a little bit of entrepreneur spirit, let's say, and a little bit of chefdom, and identified a very specific problem. So the problem is to do with our food system, and I think we can all agree that the food system is in a pretty poor state right now. It's kind of a leftover for us from the military-industrial complex in the 50s and 60s and so forth, and my generation has inherited it. So I fell in love with the model. 2 things. One is the community support agriculture. Who here knows what that is? Okay, good. The rest of you need to read up. So it's about communities essentially supporting farmers, sharing fluctuating crop yield, and the responsibility of sales and market and all that things with the farmer. The farmer really is the most important part to this whole thing. We're talking about food, farmers, beginning point, end point. The next thing was I fell in love with this system in India using a little thing called a tiffin. This is not a traditional tiffin. They're usually cylindrical, stacked, 3 containers. But they're part of a system that feeds hundreds of thousands of people a day, which was started in 1880. So this is a system that's over a century old, and it uses no waste. So we're here in North America thinking about all sorts of innovation and how do we use technology to solve all these problems and make it sexy and all that. Well, really, the answer came out in 1880. So I figured, you know, there's got to be some sort of bridge or some sort of opportunity here with the massive amounts that we're spending on packaging for food specifically, the Tiffen Project, as I've called it, and you know where we're going to be in 10 years. So the other thing that's kind of subsequent to this is the price gap between imported produce and local produce. And this is where I fit into the panel. So I'm not a chef that is doing amazing things with exceptional ingredients. I feed volumes. I feed 1,000 people a day. I feed 500 people a day, depending on who's asking. You know, it could be 2,000 people a day. But when you're dealing in those numbers, a price gap of $1 per pound on an ingredient is a massive cost. It's massive. So I decided to create the Tiffen Project, which essentially is a group of restaurants which accept this as a take-home container, and they'll offer you an incentive for bringing it in. So if you agree to do a little bit of work and factor out the container, they'll give you a discount on your meal. So Noodle Box will give you $1. Noodle will give you 10% off your bill. Thank you, Edible Canada. You're also involved. I need to give you more because you've sold out. Basically, a positive incentive system to get people to realize what they're doing with their routines and then basically carry around their own solution. So the margins from this, I take $3 off the top of each sale. It started as $4, but I had to revamp my business model. I take $3 off the sale of each, and I give it back to my restaurants. They make a little bit of money for selling it, but I give it back to them in local produce. So they raise $1,000, I give them $1,000 of a local product in season. I sold 600. We exited our proof of concept stage last year, sold 600, generated $2,400, and factored out about 3,000 take-up containers that we can track. So what if I sell 10,000 next year? I'm dealing with $30,000 of subsidy money that is directly to be focused on the gap between the price of imported produce and local produce. Imported produce, because of fixed trade agreements and so on and so forth, will always undercut an imported comparable ingredient. But since governments are not going to step in, corporations are not going to step in, people are interested in this, there was an opportunity, and that has created the Tiffen Project. I've just been kind of the overseer, so to speak, or the painter of the big picture. So let's say I sell 10,000 next year. I have $30,000 to donate. That essentially means that I can create a CSA, where my consumer is the restaurant. My grower is grower X. It doesn't even matter who it is. But I'll pay them the difference between imported produce and local produce for that ingredient by the pound, and I'll funnel it back through my restaurants. So we're about 1 year in. You know, in terms of where I got to be here, you know, the bottom line is hard work, a little bit of entrepreneurial skill, a little bit of ambition, and absolutely no shame when it comes to cornering people. Peter knows this, Eric knows this, a few other people in the crowd, which I won't otherwise identify, know this. But that was just an opportunity. These are economics that we have to deal with on a daily basis. You might not deal with it, but as a chef, it's something I digest on a daily basis. So that was the opportunity. This was the potential solution, generating money or creating a subsidy engine to bridge the gap realistically between imported produce and local produce, and then go forward with a little bit of breathing room in terms of problem solving. So that's the bottom line of the Tiffen Project. There were a bunch of questions that I was given prior to this, and I would address them. I think I've addressed all of them, but the one thing that I wanted to leave you with was, I find it funny now that the role of chef has been sexed up by the Food Network, and that people essentially are reaching back into the chef community to get economic insight, to get social insight, political insight. I think that that's a trend that's going to continue, and I think that's something, if you are on the business side of things in this room, believe it, if you reach into the hospitality sector, you will find a lot of people that work for not much money that have an incredible amount of talent, incredible amount of energy and time to deal with these problems that we have as a society, and I don't know why we haven't been looking there the whole time. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and